once again with Steve Keeter, and we're going to be talking a little bit about small press comics. I wanted to talk just a little bit about my approach to when I first started, my approach to doing small press comics. So let's kind of just get started here and see what happens. You know, when I actually discovered small press comics, I thought, wow, this is something special. I really did. And I thought back to the underground comics of the 70s. And, you know, those were based on shock value, I think. They wanted to shock everybody. They wanted to use foul language. They wanted to use bathroom humor and just really sock it to the man, I think. So my thinking was, that's fine for that time, but this was in 91, 92, 93, so that kind of was over. And I had discovered these small press comics, and I thought, well, if I do one, I'm going to make a commitment to myself to do it with clean humor. And I think that's more difficult, and that's the challenge I wanted. I don't know if you found that or not.
Well, it's easy to do gross out humor. Bathroom humor, anybody can blurt out.
Anybody can do that, you know.
Well, it's more of an art to it's an art to use the language and to use the comics medium in a way without the shock tactics and all that. You know, do something that's worthy. You know, you don't need all that stuff. And really, it demeans you. It demeans the craft. It demeans.
See, that's what I thought. I thought small press was something special, and it should be held to a higher standard. I was going to do that myself. And what I found was, as I got into it, most everything was pretty clean. I mean, I ran into a few things, but most of it, they didn't resort to that. And that was the commitment I made to myself.
Yeah, it's not, you know, it's not like oh my goodness, you could get into a censorship debate and all that. But
Right.
Small press, people in small press, generally, it's not that they self-censor themselves, it's just that they don't go there. They don't go to those dark places.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're having fun here. We're doing what we enjoy, and we're sharing it, and we're.
Yeah, it's, you know, not about being a prude. I was in the Army. I mean, the Army was all about foul language. I joined right in. But I just thought, small press, I'm not going to do that. It's just too easy.
Well, you reach a wider audience if you don't. I have seen some gross out small press comics over the years.
Oh yeah.
I remember one that applied to the UFO, the United Fanzine Organization, which we discussed in the last video that I'm the chairman of. But I remember one back in the 80s.
We're going to have a link to that last video we did right about up in here somewhere.
right there.
Yeah.
So
somewhere there.
Yeah. Some people do go both ways.
Yeah.
So I remember somebody tried to join the UFO with it was a really sick and disgusting. It was a really pornographic magazine that had to do with abortion and stuff, but it was all very, very graphic, and it was like a satire, but a satire of abortion and killing babies and stuff. I'm not going to go into an abortion debate. I'm talking about the presentation.
Yes.
And this was very graphic. Yeah. And of course, they didn't get into the UFO. It's just that, you know, and this person had talent. This person could really draw. It was a good artist, and they knew the comics medium. They knew how to make comics, and they were expressing something, but it was beyond disturbing. It was really disgusting. And so that person didn't get in, and you know, and I tried to say, you know, it's just this type of material doesn't really fit with what we're trying to do here, and I, you know, not censorship, but it's just.
Yeah, it's just beneath. You know, I think we kind of held it to a higher standard. It was just you
Yeah.
know, I know that, you know, when I first got into this and I, I was kind of afraid. I used a fake name. I used the name Will Davis for my first comic, which
Yeah.
was a combination of Will Elder and Jack Davis. So I used
Okay.
Will Davis was my name, and I went and got a P.O. box. I didn't want stuff coming to my house. I didn't know whether I was going to get a letter bomb or what, you know. I had no idea what I was getting into by doing this.
You know, that's the
And
thing about small presses. We put our addresses out there. People
yeah,
are worried about people tracking them down on the internet and this and that. We put our addresses
oh
right
yeah,
out there.
yep,
You know, if it's
right
a
away.
post office box or whatever, but you know, we just put it right out there.
Yeah,
And
well,
we're a community of people. We all trust each other. We all know each other.
yeah, but sure
It's not a
enough,
big deal.
you know, in fact, I don't know if you remember Fact Sheet 5? Did you?
I sure do.
Okay,
That
well,
was a great zine.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I have like six copies of it, the originals.
Was that Bill Dale Marcinko's? No, was he?
And it was
Who's
Seth Friedman ran that. Seth Friedman.
It's been a while. It's been a while. No, Bill Dale, he did something else.
Okay, yeah, it was Seth
Yeah.
Friedman, and I have I got six copies of it, and my cartoon, my comic book appeared in the last issue that they ever did. But by putting my address out there, sure enough, I got something I didn't ask for, I didn't pay for. It was a big comic book, hardly fit in my P.O. box. Got that out and got it home, and it was the filthiest, rottenest. It had two colors, black and red, and the red was blood.
Oh my God.
It was horrible. And I'm thinking, what did I get myself into?
I remember Steve Shipley described the place for those types of comics. Is if you receive those, Steve Shipley, I think, was the guy who coined the circular file. They go in the circular file
directly in there. Yeah. My kids were young at the time. I didn't want that stuff in the house, you know.
Right. Yeah, I had the same thing going. You know, I had children too.
Yeah.
My kids came along a little bit later, 88 and 91. By the way, my youngest daughter, Kathy, today turns 30. So today's her birthday. So happy birthday, Kathy, wherever you are.
Yeah, happy birthday, Kathy.
Yeah, and you will see this because I will demand that you watch it.
Yes.
But I'll send you the link anyway. Yeah. So yeah, but when my kids were growing up too, I made sure that I kept it clean for the sake of, you know, I didn't want my kids to grow up around, you know, that sort of thing. You know, you mentioned the underground comics. And some notes that you've made here that I'm looking at here, and the underground comics were not without merit. In fact, there are some really great stuff. The Furry Freak Brothers, Gilbert and Shelton, and Robert Crumb and stuff. And yeah, some of it was, you know, some of it was.
The drawing was fantastic. And the subject matter was a little rough. That's what they wanted to do. But I mean, as far as cartoonists,
there were some that were really artistic. I mentioned Robert Crumb and Shelton and Sheridan, but there's a lot of other stuff. But there were some that was just plain filthy. That's true.
Yeah.
And yeah. So
of course, I was, you know, my big influence was Mad Magazine. I mean, I just absolutely loved it. And I noticed that, you know, and I've heard this before, Robert Crumb patterned his art after Will Elder. If you look at Crumb's drawings and you look at Will Elder, you'll see how he didn't copy him, but he sure patterned his work after him.
That's interesting. I didn't know that, but yeah, I loved the Mad Magazine. I mean, I was in Mad Magazine when I was a kid, way back in the '60s.
Yeah.
It was always great. I mean, is it still around anymore?
No, the last I heard, they did away with it. It got to the point, I never bought the new ones. It just didn't do it for me. But I have, I have a bunch of the old ones here. These are, they reprinted a bunch of Mad. And That's a reprint.
Oh, that's a reprint of the comics.
Yeah,
the original
the original comics. That's a reprint of the original comics.
Yeah, I only discovered the comics later when I became an EC fan. And,
oh, is that right? Yeah.
Mad Comic Book was an EC publication.
Mm-hmm. Right, William Gaines.
Obviously, yes. Yeah, William Gaines and
yeah.
But it was Harvey.
And Harvey, what was it?
Harvey Kurtzman.
Harvey Kurtzman, yeah.
But those guys.
This is Will Elder, of course, right here. But anyway.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean that kind of has a Robert sort of look to it, a little bit.
Yeah.
Early.
And in this video, I've got a comparison. I'll put it on the screen for you. And you can see how he patterned himself a little bit after Will Elder. But those are my influences. And of course, I said I sent in my very first comic book to Fact Sheet 5.
Oh, yeah, funny that you mentioned that. You remember the last video? And the last video we did, and I couldn't find the very first fanzine that I ever published.
Yeah,
Pearls, and I told you it was hideous and the worst fanzine I ever published. Well, I found it. Here's the cover.
Oh boy. Oh yeah.
I sent a copy to Kaz Kazadessis, who was publishing E.R. Beatum, a great Edgar Rice Burroughs fanzine back in those days. And also I sent a copy to Paul C. Allen, who was publishing the Barsoomian. And I know they were thrilled. I got a, I mean, here's a portrait that I did. Remember, this was the psychedelic 60s, and this is a picture of Edgar Rice Burroughs I did.
Yeah, great.
Kind of stuff I did in class, you know, when the teachers weren't looking.
You're supposed to be working? That's what you were doing? Great.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, and I'm drawing comics just because I enjoy doing it. But yeah, it was really, really awful. But there it is, and I still have it. In fact, I still have 3 copies. Because a couple of people sent me their copies. I guess they didn't want them anymore, and I don't blame them.
What's amazing to me is that you started an attempt at making your own comics. I always liked comics. Never dreamed of making my own. I never, until I got much older. And this was my first attempt. This is Candid Cartoons #1. You know what's interesting about this?
It doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty good.
Well, I think the artwork was okay, but here's what I did. I'll show you. I didn't know about borders. I ran it so half the words went right off the page sometimes.
The words disappear.
I had no idea what I was doing.
You got to have a 1/4-inch gripper, what they call a gripper.
Yeah, I had no clue, because you can see in the middle, it goes into the middle where the staples are. And
who's this artwork? Who did this artwork here? Was that you or who?
Yeah, that's all me. Yeah.
That's not bad at all. That's good.
I had drawn cartoons for a long time, so I could draw a cartoon, but making a comic book, I had no idea. I just had no concept. By the time I got
you learn by doing. You learn by doing.
Yeah. By the time I got to this second issue here, I figured out you had to. I think somebody told me it was probably Tim.
You mentioned Tim Corrigan, yeah.
Yeah, it was probably him. As a matter of fact, when my critique got into Fact Sheet 5, his Small Press Explosion review was in there, and that's how I found him. But anyway, so I hear it was the second one, and I did a little better. I kind of got the idea that you had to have a
there you go.
A border.
Nice. Yeah, I love the work, like what you're doing right now, and you're gonna have a 16-page strip in the new Mantra. It's actually going to be the feature strip in that zine.
Oh, that's great.
And when it comes out, and after I have to publish a newsletter for the UFO in a week or 2. After that, I'm just going to concentrate on Mantra. I'm going to get your strip out there, and it's going to be 60 to 70 to 80 pages. It's going to be a big issue.
That's amazing.
We're going to get that out there.
Yeah.
And people can see, because I love your cartoony stuff. The funny animals and all that stuff is great. I wish I had a copy of it, but it's in my computer. Actually, I'm looking for something I'm looking for something else because if we're going back in time, see, when we started this conversation, we didn't know where it was going to go.
No,
Right?
we weren't quite sure. So this could go anywhere, as a matter of fact.
I mean, really early. You mentioned you didn't have about drawing comics or publishing comics. I drew comics ever since I was very little. I used to draw, I did stick figure comics, but I did other kinds of comics where I actually tried to draw. And I used to draw in these old composition books. Now this is way back. Let me see if there's anything that I'm not afraid to show on camera real quick here. You know what? One of my friends got a hold of these and started marking on them. Yeah. I wasn't too happy about it. They were as bad enough as it was. You don't have to put all these crude jokes in there. This is, there has to be something that's not so bad I can show it on camera. Very quickly. Okay, here we go. I have no idea when this was. I mean, certainly it was in the 60s. This is, yeah. Okay, this is supposedly the cover. SK Comics, Steve Keeter Comics, okay? And that's the cover.
Oh boy. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, this is really early stuff. This is the first page of the origin of the Masked Crusader. The Masked Crusader. Better than Frazetta, better than Barry Windsor Smith, better than anybody.
Absolutely.
You can see this down here. This is the Masked Crusader discovering his power. It says this couch weighs 200 pounds. Sure enough, he picks it up. Okay. So we know he can pick up 200 pounds, which is like a grown human being.
A super guy that can pick up 200 pounds.
I didn't know much. What it was 200 pounds just sounded like a lot, back in those days. I must have been in elementary school.
I was going to say that I did do finally. I mean, that was the beginning, and this was pretty much my last comic book, which is full comic book size, and it was a serious. The only thing I ever did that was serious, and it was 19th Century Detective, and regular comic book. I penciled it and did the story, and Tim Corrigan did the inks and the lettering.
You can't beat that.
Yeah, and
can't beat that. Corrigan was a great inker, a great letterer.
Yes, he was. Yeah, and so I did, get to a point where there's a splash page we did.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, he's a detective in the around I don't know 1890s sometime, and contemporary of Sherlock Holmes. Whenever Sherlock Holmes was, I don't remember the exact time period of Sherlock Holmes, but they had horse and buggies and that kind of thing. And yeah,
Arthur Conan Doyle inspiration there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I finally got to a point where I understood how to do a comic book. I couldn't sell any comic books, but I knew how to do them.
And we still sell to, you start out trading with other people basically. But some people do order my comics, and I appreciate it. I put them on eBay now. Early days, I just sent them out to anybody that I knew that did comics. I just sent out free copies everywhere. Well, obviously, we're not going to recoup our losses, whatever we paid, but it's nice when, if somebody cares enough to actually order it. And sometimes I'll send somebody a free copy, and then they'll send me something anyway. Here's a check, you deserve this. And it really makes it feel like, you did something that was worthwhile. It was worth the effort. That someone appreciated it enough to send you something back,
Right. And I did a lot of that. I wasn't very good at self-promotion. I think what you have to do, you've got to work at it constantly. And I didn't, I had a fairly demanding job. This was a hobby more, although I didn't think of it as a hobby. It really, really was. And so I didn't promote myself very well. But then you know what I started doing? I guess you know that I published the White Buffalo Gazette for a year.
Yes, yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, that was that
Well,
was everybody's work that would contribute, and I would put it together and monthly and mail it out. And I took it over from a guy named Ed Bowman, who was doing the White Buffalo Gazette and got tired of doing it. So I started doing it. He wrote me a letter and said, "You're going to be sorry. Nobody's going to pay for this. Nobody's going to subscribe to it. You're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to mail it all out to the contributors, but they might send you some stamps once in a while, but that's all that's going to happen." He was right. But I enjoyed it. I didn't care. He was right. That's what happened.
That was Ted Bowman published that? Ted Bowman?
Ed Bowman.
No kidding? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cat Noel was his girlfriend at the time, and Ed Bowman did that, and of course Jeff Zennick did it too. You know Jeff Zennick.
Terrific artist. He's a terrific artist. Very impressive. Yeah. Well, you said something about, okay, if it's not a business, if we're not making money, what we used to say back in the late 60s, there was an expression, the early 70s, it was firewall. Yeah, I wrote it out.
Okay. That
that means fandom is a way of life. We called it fandom. Small press was all fandom back in those days. The terms that we used. Yeah. Firewall. We firewall, and somebody would, we always knew what that meant when somebody put that in a review or whatever. It's a way of life. It's what you do. It's what you enjoy doing. It's just like going to work and doing anything that you do. It's more than a hobby. It's it may start as a hobby, but it becomes.
I never really thought of it as a hobby, but it was because we didn't make any money or anything like that.
Hobby, you think
professional.
Stamp collecting is a hobby, And small press now, they need to change it because we don't, small press is a way of life.
Yeah, right.
I mentioned a package that I got.
Oh, we're going to look at that, aren't you? Yeah.
I got this from Matt Halls. Now, Matt Halls is a guy who's been on YouTube since the beginning. He's a very funny guy. He's done The Happy Show is a show that he's done on YouTube for at least 2005 or 6, a long time. Okay. But he's also a comic book guy. I didn't know that until just recently. I knew that he had a humorous character that he did called the Nocturnal Avenger, that he did a bunch of videos of this guy that were really hilarious. And we even collaborated on a video one time about 10 years ago or something. But recently, Matt's been, he owns a comic book shop, okay? He owns a comic book shop. I didn't know that until recently. And I didn't know that he's been doing, small press stuff. He's been in different circles. He wasn't in the UFO or whatever, but he sent me a message and said he's going to send something to me. And apparently, John Byrne, I remember when John Byrne was around in small press, before he went pro, before he went to work for Marvel and DC and everybody, he used to publish comics. He used to have some of his small press comics, and he was always impressive as an artist and as a writer too. But apparently, I got a note from Matt around here somewhere. It's probably in the computer, of course. I could probably find it real quick. He kind of explains this. I think I got it right here. But John Byrne started a story, a Fantastic Four story. That was, it was, let's see, he was trying to join where is it? Right here. Okay, Matt Halls. There he is. He said that, okay. Oh, Matt Halls is also working on a novelization, comic book novelization of the Frankenstein novel.
Oh, the graphic novel.
Yeah, but Matt is a really, really good artist. He said, okay, John Byrne proposed 15 years ago on his website's message board that several of us aspiring artists finish a fantastic story Fantastic Four story that Byrne did as a tryout when he was applying for Marvel Comics. He did this story, started this story, but it was never finished for Marvel Comics, just to show them what he could do. And well, these years later, Matt took the story and put his own inks in there and re-inked it. And here it is right here. He just sent this to me. I don't think this is actually available for sale. It can't be because it's copyright stuff, you know.
Oh,
but
okay.
it's just, yeah, because it's the Fantastic Four. But he finished and here it is. I just got this in the mail. John Byrne with Matt Hall's inks.
Oh boy, yeah, yeah, very professional.
The imaginary giant-sized Fantastic Four #1. So yeah, let me see. He's got some notes here, and he thought I would find this interesting. There's the splash page.
Oh yeah, wow.
John Byrne's original pencils, and
so Matt did the inks, and who did the colors? Did
he did the ink and the coloring.
Coloring, yeah.
Matt did it all,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's there's some more.
Wow.
He said he's going to send this to me, and I guess he just made a few copies of this just to send to certain people, and I'm proud to be one of the people.
Yeah, that's a collector's piece right there.
Yeah, it's really nice. What's going on here?
Very cool.
Yeah, it looks like the Human Torch is in a red outfit, and the Human Torch leaves the Fantastic Four sort of a cliffhanger at the end of the story. But since it was never continued, we'll never know what happened after that. But yeah, I just got this. So I'm proud of this. I'm happy to have this.
Yeah, that's nice.
That is a great guy. You can look him up on YouTube, Matt Halls or Matthew Halls.
Do you remember Mike Hall, who did Mystery Man?
Yeah, I remember Mike Hall.
I always loved that. He was very funny, very funny. And I think he does professional work now too, Mike Hall.
I haven't seen him by him for so long that I don't remember much. I just remember Mike Hall. He was a member of certain groups that I was in. I think you were, I still haven't figured out if you were in the UFO or the BPP, but you were in the SPS. I think
I was in the UFO for a short time, yeah.
You were for a little while. Weren't you in the SPS, the Small Press Syndicate?
Yes, I was in that longer, yeah.
I was in the SPS. There was another one, the SPA. Small Press Association. There was the SPL, the Small Press League. I was in
some couple of APAs. APAs.
KA. I was in Kappa Alpha and APA 5, but only for a little while back in the 70s. Yeah, there's a lot of organizations out there. There's still some APAs around, but I've lost track of what's going on with the APAs.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have the UFO to concentrate on right now.
Since you're the chairman, I guess you've got a lot to do.
So I'm pretty busy with that.
Well, do you think we've talked this to death?
Yeah, we can save some stuff, but we can save some stuff for next time.
That's what I was thinking. You got any ideas for next time?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
I've got a big folder full of stuff here. Here, I'll show off one last thing.
All right.
My character, the Raven, been around for a while. Lee Jackson, it used to be called Lee Jackson. Now it's Winston Lee Jackson. But he was doing we were doing comics together way back in the 70s. Somewhere along the line, Lee said that he was going to do a Raven story, a Raven comic. It was like 20 years ago, and I think he's still working on it. But 20 years.
Still working on it. That's going to be a good one.
So I don't know when it's going to come out or what. But he sent me some of his original artwork, and this is huge. This is actually, the original art was this size.
Oh, yeah.
It's just enormous. The Raven. And this is the page from the story.
Wow.
So obviously you're not going to copy this in some photocopy shop. You have to do a set printer.
Right.
But, I got some original art here that people sent me, and that's one of the ones I really treasure. So. All right. Well, nice talking with you.
Okay, we'll do this again next time. And I hope everybody subscribes and hit that notification bell so you know that we're doing another one. I will see you next time.
Firewall.
Right.